All right, we are back with a slightly more functional game, but something that's clearly not production ready. So, what I've got now is a game where I get one chance to guess the correct answer. I might either win or lose on this guess. I have a 25% chance of actually guessing it correctly. But it turns out I have a basic little cheat mechanism built inside of here where I'm telling myself I'm logging the correct answer. So here I know the correct answer is 0. I know I'm going to get that right. Here I know it's 3, so I'll get it wrong. This is the index actually, so it's the 0, 1, 2, third index right here. I know I'm going to get that right. But the difference between this game and our previous game is that I don't get multiple guesses. I either win the game or lose the game, right? I either get it correct. In this case, boom, I got it wrong. No chance at getting it right. So the question is, how are we going to do this? What's the mechanism that's going to look like that makes this actually happen? So I'm building this in. This is an annoying, awful game at this point. A lot of the stuff is going to look familiar. We've got our pseudo buttons over here. They have data 1, 2, 3, or 4. I've got my styling so that they look like buttons. I query all of them. I assign them all to have the same event listener. And this is covered in one of the previous videos. So if this initial mechanism does not make sense, I'd encourage you to go back and get that. Take a look at that. One of the first things I've added over here is this notion of a game in session. Okay, so I've got this game object. Previously, we had this game object that was just a correct answer that was predetermined. Now, I actually have a game object where I determine whether or not the game is in session, and I initialize the game to set the game in session to be true. So let's talk about game in session first. So what we've got is I have a game object. Don't even worry about the correct answer at this point. I've got a game object. Remember that this script is going to run at the time the page loads. It's going to create a game object that has a null game in session and has a null correct answer. I initialize the game, which is to say I pass the game object by reference over here into this function, and right away I set the game in session equal to be true. We'll talk about this stuff in a moment. Then, when we're in the button click, which is called for when you click on any of these unordered list elements over here that look like buttons, the first check that I ask is whether or not the game is in session. If the game is not in session, I don't do anything. Oops, I don't do anything. So if this turns false, nothing happens. My game logic does not happen. If the game is in session, I proceed as I did the last time. In this case, I either tell the user that they won with a green, that they clicked on it properly, they guessed properly, or they lost because they clicked on the incorrect answer. Following the determination of whether or not this was the correct answer or not, I run this endGame method, again passing game object into here. In this case, game object is a global variable, but I think this is just a little bit a stronger way of doing it. I take my game object, and I have a function down here called endGame, where I set the game in session to be false. And this effectively just ensures that only a single button press can be registered in this game. So I get my one guess over here. At this point, if I were to look at game object, right, the game in session is equal to false. If I reload my page over here and I take a look at my game object, the game in session is true. In this case, the correct answer is 3. Remember, this is an index as opposed to or wait a minute. No, yeah. Oh, that's actually kind of interesting. I forgot I did that. So in this case, the index is 2, but the correct answer turns out to be 3. We'll talk about how that happened in a second. That's maybe a little bit confusing. And then this case, here, my game object, index 1, correct answer is going to be 2, right? So we can see off of that. I got that guy right, but I don't have the ability to click. Okay, you get it. So how did this happen? Well, in my init game, this is where I'm setting the correct answer down here. That's where that other number is coming from. And I did this in a way that makes it actually quite extensible. So remember, we had our node list over here that corresponded to all of our pseudo buttons. Because these are vars directly inside the script. These are actually global variables at this point. So my AR button list over here, I can take a look at him, and I'm going to see I've got 4 list elements over here. I'll clear my console. Maybe I'll make this a little bit larger so you can see this. I'm going to scrunch him over here too. So I've got my array list. This has 4 individual array elements over inside of here. Each of these elements, because it's an array list, I can run things like get attribute on them, right? So my data, so the AR button list, for example, of 0 dot my data, or get attribute my data, that gets the string 1. So where on earth did that come from? That 1, my data for the 0th element, for the 0th list item element, so this is list item 0, he has a my data value assigned to be 1. So this particular li list item, he's the 0th element. When I get the attribute my data from him, that's the string 1 defined on line 26. Similarly, if I get the 1th element, I'm going to get the string 2. If I get the 2nd, I get the string 3, and the 4th, darg, I get the 4. Okay, so this is getting this little my data guy right over here. This is this 1, 2, 3, 4 in words over here is what the user gets to see, but it's not necessarily the right answer from the computer's point of view. And this is kind of a key point. The right answer from the computer's point of view is either this number 1, 2, 3, or 4, and this could have been anything. Right, this is completely arbitrary as long as there's a uniqueness condition sort of set on these, right? Otherwise that would cause problems. And what I'm doing to check and see if it is the correct answer is I'm actually getting this attribute, this my data, and I'm seeing if it matches the choice. I hard-coded this to 3 in the previous video, but right now I'm going to be setting this randomly. And I'm going to be doing something a little bit more over here. You remember the map function? Let's go down and take a look at this in NickGame. My AR button list, I can run a map function. This is basically a for loop on every single element of this AR button list. Recall the AR button list, AR button list is the 4 list items. This map function runs on each element inside of this array, calls it lm, and I get this attribute my data. What it does is it returns this new array over here called choices. So if I were to take this line, copy this, run it in the console over here, I'm going to see that my choices are 1, 2, 3, and 4. I could make this whatever I wanted. So let's say this is A, B, C, or D. Save this page. I'm going to reload. I'm going to run this again. My choices now are A, B, C, or D. If I have 30 choices inside of here, because this is a for loop on each element, and it's getting the attribute, it's going to select out all of the right answers from the computer's point of view, from the page's point of view. So this is super convenient. So let's go back. It doesn't really matter if I leave this as A, B, C, or D. What we do over here then is I have these array of 4 choices. I determine the number of choices that are available, in this case 4, right? And I multiply a random number and I get a number out of this. This is where I'm logging that choice number. So when I'm initializing the game at the time of page load, I get a choice number, and then I assign the game object's correct answer to be the choices of that choice number. Remember choices, let's go take a look. Choices is going to be either A, B, C, D, right? It's going to be some random index of this, A, B, C, or D. And this is what the comparison is going to be done off of. So my game object, in this case, the correct answer is C, A, B, C, index 0, 1, 2, and that's where this 2 comes from. And the 2 is logged at line 79 over here, right? I logged my choice number. So I can add additional elements inside of here, and I don't really care what they are as long as they're unique, right? E, oops, F, G, 5, 6, that's 6, 7. Reload this page. I have a random one-shot guess. In this case, I know it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But this is now extensible. I'm winning and losing. But again, we're getting a little bit deeper now into the actual mechanics of a game where I can control workflow by whether or not the game is enabled. At this point, I'm clearly not enabled. And second of all, I have a right answer that's showing up randomly each time. And in an ideal sense, you're going to put this inside of a closure or something where the user can't actually see this. Definitely not log it. But for debugging purposes, it's sort of essential that you know what things are doing to get it right.